what's the biggest barrier to expanding handheld ultrasound sort of even more widely than it has been?
Well, so first of all, there are technology barriers, and then there are healthcare structural barriers. And those, the healthcare structural barriers are, there is a current workflow to bring imaging into radiology, right? And there's a reimbursement for the imaging in radiology, and then there's an ownership of imaging within radiology. And so you have to kind of change the thought process of the hospital and of radiology and of the workflow to realize that, first of all, hospitals have a fixed throughput of imaging, right? So there's only so many machines they have and so many ultrasonographers and so many images they can take. And so by adding in point of care ultrasound, it increases the bandwidth. And from a radiology perspective, it allows radiology to focus on the higher end, the more complex scans than just doing the routine everyday scans that are not as necessary. And so you have to work through healthcare. You have to change behaviors, because right now, for a general practitioner, it's just so easy to order a chest X-ray. Yeah, and they don't have the liability, they don't have to do the work, et cetera. But the difference between a $50 X-ray that's done with a handheld or a $500 X-ray that's sent in, it's, are we interested in healthcare economics? Are we interested in ease and reimbursement? So having to change the pathways and get into economic models, you have to show people a whole new way that it's not 50 to 500. It's you're going to be at capacity through radiology no matter what. You can increase your capacity by having more scans done at the point of care. And then, of course, that if by catching something earlier, instead of having someone in the emergency room waiting 3 hours for a chest X-ray to be sent, whatever, come back, you can just take the image and have them go home. You have to build all the new models and show them how this new workflow can benefit. On the technology side, it's simply, I would have to say the biggest barrier is what you started off the conversation with. It's education. It's how do you get someone to be comfortable and have the proficiency to be able to rely on their diagnosis earlier in. And a fascinating fact is 60% of medical schools in the United States today have ultrasound and point of care ultrasound in their curriculum. So every year, kids that are now graduating and going into the residency have learned how to do point of care ultrasound. Today, 42% of all residencies in the United States have point of care ultrasound in their curriculum. So we know that in 5 years, most medical students that are graduating are all going to have this new ultrasound stethoscope mindset, and they're going to have they've broken through the fear of someone for the first time doing the imaging, and then someone who's very busy and just doesn't want to learn something new. So this is happening. And the next generation of clinicians coming through the education system will have this capability. And I think in a decade or two, the ultrasound will be the stethoscope of the future.
I mean, it's interesting, right? That you say 42%, and in my mind, I'm like, it should be 100%, right? It's like, how many hours of genomics does anyone, learn about it? I mean, I mean, the last time I checked, it was like maybe a couple of days, right? And it's so fundamental to practicing medicine these days. If I had my way, I'd love to figure out how to whiteboard and build the system from the ground up again, because the way that it's designed is, I feel just it's an impediment to. We've got so many of these new tools like you guys are working on that can really, really move the needle for patients and significantly bring down cost because of the capabilities that it brings to the table. And it kills me when the system is just so sclerotic on how it adopts these things. It's not designed for change,
right?
Which is the part that kills me. So,
well, the other part is that a lot of the companies who have all of the large companies that are out there have MRI imaging in the hospital. These are $1.5 million, $2 million magnets or CT machines, $500,000 to $1 million machine. And then all of these different, probes and all these different, $150,000, $200,000 cardiac echo machines. There's not as much incentive for these large companies. They'll have handheld ultrasound because people will ask for it, but the incentive is really to keep selling more expensive machines, not bringing care out of the hospital into these low cost settings. And so, we're fighting up against existing workflows, and we're fighting up against big behemoths that are not really that incented to disrupt their own business, and it does take time. But people, point of care ultrasound has a lot of momentum, and it's here to stay. And the training and the ability to, I think it all starts at the bottoms up. And while we're fighting all the current barriers, over time, as all these new kids get into practice, our things will change for the better. I have a lot of faith, and we have sold more handheld ultrasound than any other company in the world, and there's a reason for that, because we've done things that are new and unique and cost effective, and we're going to continue to disrupt. And I think it's going to meet in the middle. While we're trying to build the market's also getting developed organically. And I wouldn't be too dour. I'm actually pretty excited about the future. And healthcare, there's also a lot of technologies that can hurt people, and you want to evolve in a way where data supports the technology, and you want it to evolve. And I think the genie's out of the bottle, and it's not going back in.